Okay, good afternoon, Paul.
Hi, Dan.
Thanks for taking the time out to chat with me this afternoon. Just really want to kind of have a chat around your kind of perspectives on kind of customer experience in retail, kind of this year with everything that's gone on, and also looking ahead for what that will do for the landscape going through peak this year, but also into 2021. So I guess to kick things off, it would be really great to get your view on how you think peak this year will be different for retailers, and what you're doing at Wincanton to prepare for it.
Well, I think first of all, in many parts of our business at the moment, we're almost experiencing peak now. We're seeing that in some really key sectors, particularly in sort of some of the general merchandise, home sector, and in the case of sort of garden DIY, outside living, I guess we've seen an extended peak significantly. We're still seeing that now. So what's interesting, I suppose, is understanding how that's going to play out then in the traditional peak periods, because in some areas I think we can see already that we're going to continue to trade at peak levels, particularly in sort of home delivery side of our business, for example. It's interesting to understand what the shape of that might look like. Whether Black Friday, Cyber Monday is going to feature to the same extent that it has. Will retailers be putting the same offers out there to the same extent? What will the current stock situation, kind of drive in terms of those offers? And therefore, dependent on what the participation is of that retail, estate, then our challenge will be fulfilling what comes out of that, of course. So I think more than ever, the challenge around planning, the challenge around having resilience and capacity really is going to be key.
Yeah, very interesting to see how peak will actually play out. Do you think there have been any kind of significant changes in the way kind of delivery expectations have maybe changed this year?
I think the sort of onset of COVID has certainly driven some changes in behaviour. I think just the fact that so many of us are continuing to be homebound has perhaps in some areas changed our delivery preferences. Clearly, whether we want stuff delivered, whether we want to collect stuff. I think there's also been a should we say a sort of relaxing of behaviour to some degree around the level of the focus on speed, because by mere default most of us are spending more time at home. I think for many people they've sort of reflected a little bit, shall we say, more sort of internally on what's really important, and is the next day delivery of X or Y really that important? Do I really need it that quickly? So I think from a sort of behaviours point of view, we've seen some changes. I guess on the reverse side of that as well, perhaps slightly less of a return element in some of the areas that we service coming through, and I think some of that again is perhaps people having a slightly more considered view, perhaps when they're buying, and certainly when they're coming to make a decision around whether they return an item or not. So it's in some ways I think that's probably helped. Perhaps some of the the cost to serve challenge that exists alongside the insatiable proposition piece at the end of the day, and some of that may well carry through.
I think it's really interesting what you said there about the relaxing on the focus of speed. It'll be interesting to see whether that permeates into peak, or whether that becomes a distant memory of the first sort of couple of quarters of this year.
Indeed, yes. We've short memories, I think, haven't we? But
Yes,
we'll see.
indeed. Thinking a little bit more in kind of in terms of customer experience broadly, from a kind of a retail point of view, what do you think will be kind of the real key drivers of great customer experience moving into 2021?
I think the simple points, I think, around reliability and just building that trust with the customer, the end customer. I think to some degree the customer's awareness of the brand that might be delivering and the carrier brand is probably greater than ever right now, and it's interesting how that plays out versus the retail brand. But I think delivering on expectations and doing that consistently, I think is going to just continue to be a key driver, I think, in terms of end customer loyalty to the brand in that respect. I think we are the ease of return and the ease of that process undoubtedly is going to continue to be important in that whole sort of customer trust area. And I guess there's some evidence that the role of sustainability, I think, will, I think, become more prominent. How prominent it will be interesting to see, because again, how do the economics sort of play off against that? But I think certainly as a father of two teenagers, it's interesting to understand, or to see really, to chat to them about just how important certain things are to them, whether they're actually standing the cost of these services at the moment is another thing, but perhaps it might change when they do. But I think there is a general awareness now, an increasing awareness amongst certainly the younger population, and when we look at some of the real volume brands that are out there in the market, then it's really the young population that are sort of feeding that. So I think there'll be an increasing importance on that sort of provenance that goes with the experience of that retailer.
It's an interesting concept that you mentioned there about the carrier brand and consumers becoming more aware of that as maybe something that might influence their behaviour in the future, maybe even loyalty. That's an interesting insight, interesting perspective. If you had to kind of isolate maybe one area that retailers kind of need to focus in on for the peak of this year to improve kind of customer experience, what would your view on that be?
I think the communication with the end customer and the ability to keep that customer informed in a way that works for them, and that can be quite personalized, I guess. Certain of us will want to know every stage of the fulfillment process and where things are. Others will only really want to know by exception. And I think really the ability just to keep the customer informed in a way that works for them plays back to that confidence, trust, and I don't need to worry about it because there's never any issues, and if there are, they tell me about it. And I guess that's always the challenge in the world we're now in. This peak, we won't just have potentially weather to accommodate, but who knows what might happen in the sort of the COVID world that we're in today. So I think that ability to to keep customers informed, and most customers, certainly in my experience, appreciate that and are willing to work with brands and retailers in that respect. So yeah, that's probably a key area, I think.
Interesting. I've changed tack slightly and kind of maybe focusing on the world of sort of fulfillment and logistics for a few moments. From a logistics point of view, and kind of thinking about COVID-19 specifically, do you think it's made the world a bigger place or a smaller place to operate within?
That's a good question. I think in many ways there's a good reason to answer to both of those, actually, which might sound a bit of a cop out, but I think in some respects, what COVID's done, with an organisation like ours, for example, is it's really got us focused on our colleagues, the welfare, how we've engaged, informed, supported them, who are clearly supporting us and our retailer brands. So we've had to really focus on the core of our business in a way that we probably haven't had to really, and so it's got us a lot closer, I think, as an organisation, for sure. Whether that be the executive team, all the way down to our colleagues who are fulfilling and delivering. The communication has had to be really, really strong. So I think it's brought us closer together. On the flip side, actually, I think what's absolutely happened is that we've seen far greater propensity to work with other organizations and collaborate. So in that way, I think it's made it's opened up opportunities that perhaps historically there wasn't a burning platform to have to share and support. And I'm talking 3PL to 3PL type stuff here at the end of the day, where one organization that maybe has a surplus and the other one has a demand of people who just happen to be co-located. Well, it's kind of broken down quite a lot of barriers, I think, in that respect. So I think that sort of element of collaboration within our community, and I think then broader across the sort of supply chain, I think is something that will hopefully stand some test of time. I'd like to think it's stepped us on from a collaboration perspective, and the other very good reason, of course, to keep that going is because it makes good business sense. There are definitely opportunities, and we can still see them today, where we've been able to where we've done things for the right the right sort of people behavioral reasons, but actually in doing that, it's generated some good ongoing business opportunities. It's helped us manage our cost base in a better way, and I think that's something that I'd like to think will stand more test of time.
Really interesting. Yeah, I mean, we've seen examples of collaboration right across the kind of the retail, logistics and fulfillment landscape throughout 2020. So it will be really interesting to see how how that continues as an ongoing trend, won't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great stuff. So I just want to kind of round off with just I guess a question to kind of summarize. If you could summarize in 3 words the feeling within the retail, logistics, fulfillment industry right now, what would they be for you?
3 words. I'd say optimistic, from a point of view of what we've kind of been able to achieve in this previous period, and how that will stand us going forwards. I think there's a point about being creative, and by that I mean there's a you know, an onus on us to sit down and really think about how we approach this next part of the journey, for sure, because you know, none of us really have the answer. We probably had a lot of the answers 6 months ago, but we don't necessarily now. And I think the last point, I'll use a word to perhaps describe it, is together. I think for you know, an organisation like ours and you know, all of the others that exist out there, I think what you know, again, last 6 months and looking forward has done is really sort of baselined us to the, you know, just the importance of people. You know, that's the importance from a you know, an ability to, you know, run our businesses, but actually just when we strip it down, just the, you know, you know, the basic human factors of, you know, helping people, protecting people. And I think from that point of view, it's you know, it's kind of rebased us in a very good way. And you know, that's again something that, you know, I hope will stand some test of time. So if you can pick out the 3 words in there, then that's yeah, I think that's where I'd probably land it.
Brilliant. Yeah, so the 3 words were optimistic, creative, and together. Listen, Paul, it was really great speaking to you. Thank you for taking the time out
No, not at all.
and share your views.
Not at all.
Great stuff.
Good. No problems.